Hi everyone, my name is Tom Pettit and I am looking forward to going on a church history tour with you. Our church history tour is scheduled to begin 2 months from now, and I wanted to give you a brief update on the status of the tour and what you could expect each day of the tour. The tour is moving forward. I've made all the plans and the arrangements and we're ready to go. We just have to wait for that day to get here when we can actually depart. As you know, the church historical sites are opening on May 28th. As I've communicated with the missionaries and the on-site directors there at each historical site, I've come to an understanding of what they expect out of groups that are arriving at each of the historic sites. And so I want to share with you exactly what to expect so that you can know what open really means. Now, the church historical sites are going to start offering guided tours come May 28th, and each of those guided tours will be limited to just 8 people. Each guided tour will begin every 30 minutes. So we can have 16 people go through a church historical site every hour. For this reason, the sites will not allow me or any other tour director to book a group tour. Not only because our group is larger than 8, but they won't let me do back-to-back appointments because then I'm monopolizing, we are monopolizing a half day at the historic site. And that would cut off the opportunities of families and other small groups to access the sites with a tour guide, a sister missionary giving them the tour. And so they've chosen not to allow us to do that. So when we get to a church historical site, we won't be assigned a sister missionary who will give us a guided tour through the historic sites. So what will we do? Let me share with you briefly through our itinerary exactly what to expect, keeping in mind that when we get there in July, these rules are going to be the same as they are when the church sites open on May 28th. Please keep in mind that the governor of New York has said on multiple occasions, including today, that he fully expects New York to be 100% open come July 1st. If that's the case, will the church follow suit and also open up their tours to larger groups? Maybe, or perhaps not. So as I go through the itinerary briefly here with you and tell you what you would expect from a church history tour if we were to go on May 28th when the historic sites first open, please keep in mind that it's kind of a worst case scenario. The better case scenario is that the church does open up a little bit more, and so they're not taking just 8 people at a time, but they're taking larger groups like they used to, and they're allowing tour groups to show up and be assigned sister missionaries to take them through the historic sites. So as we go through it, keep that in mind, but also keep in mind my own personal experience and the experience that I've witnessed from others, and that is this. When I return to church historical sites, as I've done many times, my experience at those sites is different than the first time I was there. I've had this told to me by others who have come on my tours multiple times, in that the first time they come, it's a great experience, so great that they want to come a second time with different family members or friends or whatever, and that second time they tell me is always better than the first. The reason being is when we go to a site for the first time, we're trying to wrap our heads around the educational aspect of the site, in that what happened here, who, why, what, when, where, why was the doctrine, this section of the Doctrine and Covenants received here, what was going on, what were the people doing, and let's learn about their lifestyle, what life was like at this historic site when the people were here. And so we're looking at it through an educational lens. The sister missionaries do a good job of giving us the education and coupling it with a spiritual experience. But that opportunity of an extended spiritual experience sometimes gets swallowed up in our focus of trying to figure out the education. Now, pre-COVID, what I would do on the church historical site, church history tours, is I've been through the sites enough that I know the scripts, the stories that the sister missionaries share. And so leading up to the site, I tell you everything that builds up to the site and essentially hand off to the sister missionaries. They pick up where I left off. They tell the stories. We get back on the bus. I continue right where the sister missionaries left off. Now, if we're unable to have sister missionaries give us guided tours at the sites, Well, I'm going to do that middle part, and I'm going to share with you all the stories that the sister missionaries share with you, plus even more, because we're going to have more time than those missionaries have on the guided tours to share. And so I'm going to work on giving you all the educational experience up front, so that when you walk onto a historic site, you then have an experience, a spiritual experience. Now, what degree of a spiritual experience, that's going to be up to you, but you're not going to walk onto a site and be blinded by the overwhelming desire to educate yourself as to everything that happened there and try to become somewhat of an expert on the things that happened there. Rather, you're going to go onto site and you're going to feel and you're going to have an experience, having done the educational work beforehand. So with that, let me go through each of the historic sites and tell you what you could expect if the historic sites are open in July, the same way that they're going to be open at the end of July or the end of May. So on July 10th, you're going to fly into Cleveland, Ohio. There's no activity scheduled that day, so you can get to the hotel whenever you want. You're going to have opportunities to get dinner and get settled in. The next morning on the 11th is when we meet for the first time. I've got the hotel ballroom reserved just for us. We're going to get in there and we're going to have a fireside type of meeting where I'm going to teach you all about Kirtland. I'm going to share with you tons of stories. We're going to look at the Doctrine and Covenants, and we're going to look at the historical context of everything and the stories of people who lived there. We're then going to get on the bus for a half-hour drive to Kirtland, and I'm going to continue telling you all those historical stories. Our first stop will be the Kirtland Temple. Now, our church doesn't own the Kirtland Temple, and the owners of the Kirtland Temple have decided not to give interior tours of the temple for all of 2021. So no matter what changes with COVID mandates and regulations and government and whatever else, one thing we can count on is that the Kirtland Temple will not be open. But they do have this amphitheater type of setting on the temple grounds, which we will utilize. And there I will have an opportunity to share with you for 45 or 60 minutes all about the Kirtland Temple. Anything that you would hear on the tour of the interior of the temple, I'm going to share with you. And that's really just the construction, how it was made and whatnot. But then I'm going to share with you all the spiritual things that happened with the temple, why the Lord commanded them, to build the temple, what they did with the temple after it was dedicated. We're going to talk in depth about the day of dedication and a lot about section 110, when the Savior and prophets of old came and visited Joseph and Oliver, bestowing keys upon them. And so we're going to take that opportunity. We can be all over the grounds to visit the Kirtland Temple. We are then going to go to the Morley Farm, which our church owns. But even pre-COVID, they didn't have missionaries there. And even when the church history sites are open, there's no plan of having missionaries there. And so we will experience Morley Farm the way that any tour group in the past has, in that we will go there and I'm going to share with you a lot of information, a lot of experiences that happened there at the Morley Farm that we'll be able to enjoy. We will then go to Historic Kirtland, is what it's called. And it's a little village where we have a visitor center there, and we have the Newell K. Whitney home and the Newell K. Whitney store. And it was the upstairs level of the store where Joseph had his office, the school of the prophets met. Several revelations, including the word of wisdom, was received there. And we're going to do all the education leading up to your visit of the historic Kirtland village, so that when you're there visiting the exterior of that home and that store, you're going to have all the educational information with you, and so you'll be able to experience that visiting that site. And while you're visiting there, when you get off the bus, I'm going to hand you an envelope. And in that envelope is going to be some information, some additional stories, and some additional scriptural references, and some questions and some guidance as to where to find the answers to those questions. When you're standing there at the Newell K. Whitney store, you're going to have in hand essentially a come follow me type lesson that you're going to be looking at and helping you have that experience while you're standing on the outside of the store. The next day, the 12th, and July 11th is a Sunday. I expect that we won't be able to attend a sacrament meeting with the local ward. We'll see what the COVID restrictions are at the time, but bringing our group into their sacrament meeting with limitations that they already are dealing with. I don't anticipate us to have a sacrament meeting that day. July 12th, we're going to be visiting the Johnson Farm in Hiram, Ohio. Same thing. We're going to show up. You're going to be educated. You're going to have an envelope in hand. You're going to be able to experience walking around those sacred grounds there at the farm. And then later that afternoon, we're going to spend 4 hours of drive time making our way east over to Scranton, Pennsylvania, where we'll have a hotel that night. And during those 4 hours on the bus, I'm just going to be talking your ear off with church history stories. And I'm going to share with you stories about places that we're not visiting. Missouri, Liberty Jail, Adam-on-Diamond, Nauvoo, Carthage, the Mormon Battalion, the Pioneers. I'm going to be sharing all those things with you and sharing with you the educational information to prepare you for your visit the following day to the Priesthood Restoration site and to the Whitmer Farm in Fayette, New York. Now, for example, when we get to the Priesthood Restoration site, I'm going to take you to a little hill that overlooks the site. In the background, behind me where I'm going to be standing, you're going to be listening to me and looking at the reconstructed home of Joseph Smith. And I'm going to share with you all the stories that the sister missionaries would share with you, and I'm going to, plus more, and then you're going to have an opportunity to go and explore all of the Priesthood Restoration site on your own. Envelope in hand to enhance your spiritual experience while you're there. You're going to be able to go to each of the homes and take pictures and look in the windows. You're going to be able to go into the Restoration Woods where John the Baptist appeared. Missionaries aren't stationed there normally, so the experience that you'll have in the Restoration Woods is the same as you'd always have pre-COVID or had the sites been fully opened. And then we're going to get back on the bus, go over to the Susquehanna River. Missionaries have never been stationed there, and so when I take tour groups there in the past, we have a great experience. There's some sacred things that I share there at the banks of the Susquehanna River, which I'll do, of course, with our group. And so any experience that you would have had pre-COVID at the Susquehanna River is the exact same that you'll expect to have when we're there together in July. We'll then make our way up into New York to Fayette and visit the Peter Whitmer Farm. When you step off the bus at the Whitmer Farm, you're going to be prepared to have a spiritual experience there. And you'll have an opportunity to walk those sacred grounds, to look at the reconstructed cabin, and have a great experience while you're there. July 14th is our day at Niagara Falls. If you go to their website, you'll see that they are selling tickets to Maid of the Mist and all their other attractions that they do. They're fully expecting to be open and ready for us. They don't open until about Memorial Day, but come that time, everything's going to be operating and open. So what you've been expecting from Niagara Falls is exactly what you'll get. July 15th is our day at Palmyra. The hotel is giving us use of their ballroom that morning, and so we're going to be able to gather, and I'm going to give about an hour's worth of fireside on Palmyra, giving you the education of Palmyra so that you can go have the spiritual experience. Our first stop in Palmyra is the Hill Cumorah. The Hill Cumorah is accessible. We can climb to the top of it and have a great time there at the hill. When I take groups, when I've taken them pre-COVID, we don't go in the visitor center. Inside the visitor center is interactive kiosks that you would find common at any church visitor center throughout the world. Those kiosks are closed because the missionaries don't want you touching them and then having somebody else come back behind you and touch them. And so I don't take groups in there, and so our experience at the Hill Cumorah is going to be as normal. Our next stop is going to be the Granite Building. It's on Main Street, downtown Palmyra. Near Granite Building, where the Book of Mormon was published, is that famous intersection with a different church denomination on each corner. And so when we go to that part of Palmyra, you're going to have about 2 hours to explore downtown Palmyra, to go visit those churches, to go to the Granite Building, the exterior, and take pictures and visit the exterior of that site. I'm going to take you down to the four corners where the churches are. I'm going to dive deep into the Pearl of Great Price and talk about some of the things that led to the first vision. We're then going to walk across the street into a cemetery where Alvin Smith, the older brother of Joseph, is buried. And we're not just going to go there to pay our respects to the oldest Smith brother, but his story is crucial to understanding a big part of the restoration, and I'm excited to tell that story to you. So when we get to the Granite Building, you're going to have about 2 hours to explore. There's a couple of gift shops and other things that might be of interest to you. And then from there, we'll go to the Smith family farm, which also includes the Sacred Grove. And at the Smith family farm, there's 2 homes. One is original, one is reconstructed. The reconstructed one is where Moroni appeared. The other one that is original is where Joseph lived with his family during those years that he was visiting the hill annually every September. And then the Sacred Grove is there, of course. And the Sacred Grove is always open. COVID never closed it. There's never any missionaries there to give guided tours. That's a self-guided experience in the Sacred Grove. So like the hill, Cumorah, and the Susquehanna River, the Sacred Grove is going to be just the same as it always would be. Always has been. Now, that's start to finish. But one thing that the missionaries have asked of me is to remind you how welcomed you are at these historic sites. The grounds are open. We get to come in and explore and experience and go right up to the homes and buildings and participate as I've explained. The missionaries have also said that although we as a group can't get reservations for a guided tour with these sister missionaries, that if the sister missionaries have a break between scheduled tours, that if you want to approach the missionaries and ask them questions, you certainly can. You're welcome to do that. In fact, you're encouraged to do that. And when the missionaries are there at the historic locations, at the homes and other sites, if their guided tour just ended and those people are dispersing and the sister missionaries are there, you can ask them, can you take me through? I know you've got another reserved tour you've got to do, but can you open the door and just let me walk through and take a picture? And the missionaries will say, yes, please come in and do that. So can we expect that every time on every location? Maybe not. But that opportunity is definitely going to be there, and all the missionaries are going to be thrilled to see us. We are welcome to be there. They want us there, and that's the message that they've asked me to communicate to you. The last thing is July 16th. That's the day you fly home. This tour, whether it's what you expected, not what you expected, it sounds better than what you expected, it doesn't sound as good as you expected, wherever you are on that, just know that the cancellation policy that I've always had in force has gone out the window. Because nothing's normal right now. And so if you feel that you want to cancel the reservation or bump it to a tour in 2022, that's fine. Just let me know. Otherwise, if you're moving forward, then expect continued updates from me. All the plans are in place. We're ready to go. We just need to wait for July to come. So please communicate to me any questions that you have or concerns or anything I can help you with, any clarification that I can give to you. You can do that by phone or by email. I welcome both. But with that, I look forward to updating you continually and eventually meeting with you soon come July.